Welcome to the deep dive. Today we have a really fun, custom-tailored exploration for you. We are pulling from some fascinating excerpted historical texts that detail the millennia-spanning history of the Maltese dog.
It's an incredibly rich history, honestly, way deeper than most people realize.
Oh, absolutely. And our mission for this deep dive is to uncover how, 2,000 years of unbroken history perfectly explains the quirks, the confidence, and that intense attachment of that tiny white dog that might be sitting in your living room right now.
Right, because their behavior today isn't random. It's a direct product of their past.
Exactly. And to really understand that, I want you to picture a harbor. We're somewhere along the Mediterranean coast, and it is, more than 2,000 years ago. Try to just put yourself in that environment for a second.
It would be intense.
Super intense. You've got these massive merchant ships rocking heavily against huge stone docks. The air is completely saturated with the smell of salt water, drying fish, exotic spices being offloaded. Traders are yelling out prices, bargaining in half a dozen different languages all at once.
Right, it's essentially the ancient world's version of a global supply chain hub. It's producing total sensory overload for anyone walking through it.
Just chaos everywhere you look. Heavy clay amphora being stacked on the wharf, bolts of silk being dragged around, massive baskets of dried fruit being hoisted up from the dark hold of a ship that just crossed open water. It is loud, it's dangerous, and it is intensely busy.
Not exactly a safe place for a small animal.
No, not at all. But somewhere in the middle of all that noise and color and heavy machinery, weaving right between the legs of these hardened traders and merchants, completely unbothered by the chaos around it, is a tiny, bright white dog.
Just kind of taking it all in.
Yeah. And here's the kicker. It's not working. It's not guarding the expensive cargo. It's not herding stray livestock. It is just present. It's curious. It's watching everything unfold with this quiet, almost arrogant confidence that seems completely out of place for an animal so incredibly small.
And that striking image, that tiny, unbothered dog amidst the chaos of antiquity, that is the perfect entry point into the core thesis of our deep dive today.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, the defining truth of the Maltese, the singular fact that explains everything about their modern behavior, is that this breed was never meant to work for humans. It was bred exclusively to live beside them.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when you look at human history over the last 2 millennia, it is largely defined by catastrophic collapse.
Right. Constant upheaval.
Yeah, I mean, the Roman Empire fell, the Byzantine world completely reshaped itself, the Renaissance turned European society upside down, entire, seemingly invincible royal dynasties came and went.
And yet they stuck around.
Exactly. Through every single one of those massive, world-altering upheavals, this tiny 5-pound dog survived it all. It didn't just scrape by either. It was actively cherished through all of it.
It really is wild when you put it in that context.
So, if you have a modern companion dog and you've ever wondered why it acts the way it does, understanding this unbroken history is going to be a massive aha moment for you.
For sure. And we can trace that unbroken lineage back to a fascinating debate over their very name, because we naturally assume the name ties directly to the island of Malta, right?
Right, which was a strategically vital hub in the central Mediterranean.
Exactly. You had Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, and countless other traders passing through it for centuries. But the historical texts actually offer another compelling theory. The name might derive from an ancient Semitic word related to port or refuge.
Wait, really? So we are essentially calling them a harbor dog rather than just a dog from Malta?
Yeah, exactly. Which makes so much sense given their association with Mediterranean coastal towns. But regardless of the exact linguistic root, the documented historical record we are looking at is staggering. We're talking about a timeline going back well over 2,000 years.
Yeah, we see small white dogs that look virtually identical to the modern Maltese depicted on ancient Greek pottery.
Which is amazing to see. And we have ancient Greek writings specifically referencing these animals as the cherished companions of aristocratic households.
And the Roman philosopher elite leaned into this even harder, didn't they?
Oh, they loved them. They prized these dogs purely for their gentle companionship. And this aristocratic association stretches all the way through the Renaissance.
Right, like you can walk into almost any major art museum today, look at the massive oil portraits of European noblewomen, and spot a little white Maltese sitting at their feet or, right in their laps. It basically became the ultimate symbol of refinement across the continent.
It really did.
It's just wild to me. I was thinking about this, and it's almost like the Maltese is the ultimate historical freeloader, but I mean that in the most charming, successful way possible.
Oh, that's actually a great way to put it.
Think about the irony here. You have all these massive, powerful working dogs throughout history, right? Mastiffs bred to guard castles, hounds bred to hunt wolves, sturdy dogs bred to pull carts.
Highly specialized utility animals.
Right. But when those jobs became obsolete, like when we invented trains or when the wolves were hunted out of a region, those tough working breeds often went extinct. But because the Maltese's only job was to be charming and look cute, their job never disappeared.
No, they just kept finding new aristocratic laps to sit on.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is the sheer brutal practicality of that survival strategy. Because if you think about the caloric math and the infrastructure required to maintain a lineage of large working hounds, it's intense.
Oh, I bet.
You need dedicated kennels. You need massive amounts of raw meat, handlers, vast estates to hunt on. When a society collapses or an economy crashes, all that infrastructure vanishes instantly.
So the big dogs disappear because humans literally can't afford to feed them anymore.
Exactly. But a small dog changes the equation entirely. It lives indoors, it eats scraps, it can travel easily in a carriage or aboard a ship.
Wow, so the unbroken lineage of the Maltese persisted precisely because they didn't require society to be stable?
Right, they just required a single human who wanted comfort.
So they were completely recession-proof. That is amazing. And when the traditional European aristocracy finally did begin to decline and shift in the 19th century, they had another safety net, right?
Yeah, the Victorians.
Right. Victorian breeders in England stepped in. They were obsessed with the new trend of formal dog shows, so they formalized the breed standards and actively worked to preserve them.
They effectively saved the Maltese from the near extinctions that plagued the histories of almost every other ancient dog breed during the Industrial Revolution.
Which brings us to how this unique, non-working history directly sculpted their modern psychology. If for 2,000 years they had literally one job, companionship, we have to look at how that manifests genetically in the animals sitting in your living room today.
And that's where the term Velcro dog comes from.
Yeah, exactly. The texts emphasize that for 2 millennia, the sole evolutionary selection pressure applied to this breed was their ability to form incredibly close, affectionate bonds with humans.
Because in canine evolution, traits are sharpened by what is selected for, and just as importantly, what is ignored.
Right, and with the Maltese, breeders applied absolutely zero selection pressure for independence. Zero pressure for working instincts, tracking, or hunting.
Nothing but companionship. Every single generation, the dogs that were bred forward were simply the ones most deeply attuned to a human's physical presence.
The result is a modern dog that follows its owner from room to room, craves physical closeness at all times, and, genuinely struggles with extended alone time.
And in the field of behavioral science, this intense attachment is not considered an incidental quirk. It is the entire evolutionary point of the breed.
Okay, this is exactly where I want to push back on a really common complaint you hear from modern dog owners, because people are constantly complaining about their small dogs being needy, or they get incredibly frustrated that their lap dog has separation anxiety and cries when they leave the house.
It's a very common frustration, yeah.
But looking at the historical context, I want to reframe this for you, the listener. We literally engineered these animals over 2,000 years to be completely and utterly obsessed with us. We systematically bred out all of their independence on purpose.
We did.
And now we're annoyed when they follow us into the bathroom.
Right, and reframing it that way is crucial for anyone trying to understand canine behavior. When a Maltese exhibits distress upon being left alone, that is not a behavioral flaw.
No, they're flawlessly expressing themselves precisely as they were genetically designed to.
Exactly. Their internal wiring tells them that their survival depends on being physically near you.
Which means if you are going to bring one into your life, you have to approach their care with that biology in mind. Leaving a Maltese alone requires gradual, thoughtful tolerance building. You can't just, lock them in a crate for 8 hours and expect them to self-soothe.
No, absolutely not. Tolerance building is a mechanical process of desensitization. It involves leaving for very short periods, maybe just stepping outside the door for 30 seconds at first, and returning before the dog reaches a state of panic.
So you're basically slowly rewriting their expectation.
Right. You're teaching their nervous system that your departure is temporary and safe. Because again, their distress isn't them being stubborn, it's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism firing off.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because you hear Velcro dog and you hear lap dog,
Yeah.
and you naturally assume they are timid, shivering little creatures that are afraid of their own shadow.
But the documentation reveals the exact opposite.
Right. We're talking about a dog that weighs 4 to 7 pounds, and yet they frequently behave like they are completely unaware of their tiny size.
It is one of the most surprising contradictions in their temperament.
Yeah.
A typical Maltese will confidently greet much larger dogs on the street.
Yeah, they'll explore new environments boldly rather than, retreating behind their owner's legs. I kept thinking of it like they have an evolutionary trust fund.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, because they have never had to work a hard day in their genetic lives. They don't carry the inherited trauma of having to fight off predators or freeze in the snow while guarding a flock of sheep. So they strut into every single room assuming they own the place.
They just assume everyone loves them because, historically speaking, everyone always has.
Exactly.
And the behavioral science behind that confidence is fascinating. A temperament rooted in security, passed down through generations and generations of pampered, safe, cherished ancestors, results in a dog that is fundamentally socially secure.
Which completely debunks the widespread misconception that small lap dogs are naturally nervous or fragile.
Exactly. They are bold because their genetic history has rarely given them a reason to be afraid of the world.
Which leads us to some really critical modern misconceptions about how to care for them. Because if they are bold and alert, they absolutely aren't just decorative stuffed animals. So what does this all mean for the listener who thinks a 5-pound dog doesn't need basic obedience training?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, treating an intelligent, alert dog like a fragile toy does a massive disservice to the dog's mental well-being. It inevitably creates severe behavioral problems.
So the size doesn't exempt them from training at all.
Not at all. The first major misconception is exactly that. They are actually highly intelligent and incredibly trainable.
And if you don't provide that structure, that natural boldness turns into a nightmare, right? Without training, their natural alertness translates into excessive barking at unfamiliar sounds or visitors.
Right. And we should clarify a very important distinction here, that barking is alertness, not aggression.
That is a huge distinction.
It is key. Barking, in this context, is a highly attuned animal noticing a change in its environment and vocalizing it to its pack, meaning you.
But without a structured response from the owner, that unguided alertness easily morphs into possessiveness or just like severe anxiety.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates the danger of underestimating the need for boundaries just because a dog fits in your purse.
And that ties right into their physical needs, too, because there's a pervasive myth that small dogs don't really need to move, that carrying them around all day is enough.
Relying on carrying them is a fast track to health issues. They need real, sustained exercise.
Obviously, a Maltese is not the dog you take on a 10-mile mountain hike.
No. But they do require daily indoor play, short, brisk walks, and mental engagement. A completely sedentary lifestyle leads directly to weight management issues, which are disproportionately dangerous for a skeletal frame that small.
Right, assuming you get the training and the physical activity right, they are phenomenal companions for very specific living situations, though.
Oh, absolutely. They are excellent for apartments and dense city living because they simply don't need a massive backyard to burn off energy.
And they're wonderful for first-time owners and the elderly, but there is a big caveat. They still require a massive investment of time and presence. You can't just leave them alone in a high-rise all day.
No, you can't. And we also need to look at how they interact with children.
Good point.
They are generally wonderful and deeply affectionate with kids. However, their small size makes them physically vulnerable to rough handling.
Right, because a toddler who doesn't understand canine body language or fragility can easily injure a 5-pound dog just by falling on it or pulling it too hard.
Strict supervision is an absolute requirement, much more so than with a sturdy, dense breed like a Labrador.
And that physical vulnerability around kids really highlights the biological reality of engineering a dog down to the size of a shoe. When you compress a canine frame that much, the mechanics of their body start to get complicated.
Very complicated.
So we have to look at the specific health vulnerabilities that come with being this tiny.
The jaw is a perfect example of that mechanical complication. You still have a standard set of 42 canine teeth, but you are trying to fit them into a miniature mouth.
That sounds like a structural nightmare.
It really is. They become incredibly crowded. They twist and overlap, which creates literal traps for plaque and bacteria.
Wow, so severe dental disease is almost an inevitability without rigorous daily brushing and professional cleanings.
Exactly.
The structural issues extend to their joints, too, right? The texts mention luxating patella, which sounds super complex, but it's essentially a mechanical flaw in the knee.
Precisely. In toy breeds, the groove in the femur where the kneecap sits is often too shallow.
A direct side effect of miniaturizing the skeleton over centuries, I'm assuming?
You got it.
Yeah.
Because the groove isn't deep enough, the kneecap can easily slip out of place, causing the dog to suddenly skip or hop on 3 legs.
Oh, wow. There is also the issue of tear staining. If you've ever seen a white Maltese, you've probably noticed those reddish-brown marks under their eyes. But the historical materials note that this is mostly cosmetic.
It is primarily cosmetic. It's caused by naturally occurring molecules in their tears that turn dark when exposed to the air.
So it doesn't hurt the dog.
No. While it doesn't hurt them, it does require regular cleaning to prevent the damp fur from developing yeast infections or skin irritation.
Makes sense. But a more serious mechanical issue for tiny breeds is tracheal collapse, right?
Yes. The windpipe is a flexible tube held open by rings of cartilage. In very small dogs, that cartilage isn't always robust enough.
So what happens?
Well, when they get overly excited, or if they pull hard against a neck collar, those cartilage rings can literally flatten out, causing a harsh, honking cough as they struggle to pull air through a narrowed airway.
Oh, that's awful. This is why using a well-fitted harness rather than a neck collar is absolutely mandatory for a Maltese then.
Mandatory. They're also prone to senior heart disease as they age.
Okay, but none of this means they're inherently unhealthy, right? In fact, small dogs like the Maltese are quite long-lived, often reaching their mid-teens.
All right, they can live a very long time. But it does mean that their physical care requires a very specific attention to detail from the owner. You are managing a finely tuned, miniaturized biological system.
Understanding those mechanics really is the foundation of responsible ownership for any toy breed.
It absolutely is.
Bringing this whole conversation full circle back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
The incredible thing about the Maltese is that its underlying blueprint hasn't changed since before the Roman Empire.
Not at all.
The core programming running in their mind is exactly the same today as it was on the docks of the ancient Mediterranean. Be present, be affectionate, and be as close to your people as physically possible.
It's a level of historical and genetic continuity that is almost unmatched in the modern canine world.
It fundamentally transforms how you view this dog, doesn't it? If you have one sitting by your feet right now, every confident little strut across the living room carpet, every sharp bark at the delivery driver dropping a package at the door, every demanding nudge of their nose asking you to pet them.
It's a direct echo of ancient history.
It really is. They are behaving exactly how the philosopher elite of Rome or the queens of the Renaissance taught their ancestors to behave thousands of years ago.
They're living, breathing artifacts of human history sitting right there on your couch.
They really are. But I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on.
Okay, what is it?
We have spent this entire deep dive looking at how humans genetically sculpted the Maltese to be the perfect companion. We bred out their independence, we meticulously engineered them to love us, to crave our attention, and to fit perfectly in our laps.
Right, all true.
But think about it from the other side for a moment. Look at how successfully this tiny 5-pound animal trained the most powerful, wealthy, aristocratic humans in history to carry them everywhere, to feed them the highest quality food, and to protect them through the violent, chaotic collapse of entire empires.
Oh, wow.
So who actually trained who? Maybe the Maltese isn't just a cute lapdog. Maybe, just maybe, they are the most successful evolutionary manipulators in human history.